For the sake of the plan, you saw it. What are we doing? We're standing on the corner, sitting in a pipeline blue. Hi, how we doing? Hold on, right? First. Yeah, the carrot up there.
And here you go. I am going to start my YouTube channel. This one was from earlier today. From I think it was. I forgot where. Yeah. This meeting I'll back out to the Indian thing I have. The union, the workers, or workers protest.
How's your week? Hello. What? You do that. Baby, that's right. Get on this. That's right. You got to learn about women empowerment too. I went to the Million Man March with a little baby in a stroller like that, and then when I went back in 2015, the same little girl she was in a stroller. Right. She was walking. I know that's right. That's the way it's supposed to be. Phone in the middle of town. Yeah. Yeah, miss. Shout out here, but it's for a great cause. Women empowerment. They in your path there.
Easy. Men and women in this nation who have paid their dues and they depend upon, and Social Security and Medicare is something that is a commitment that we as the nation have to people of this country. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator Path. Please join me in welcoming our next speaker, my friend Paul Adams. Paul is a former dairy farmer who worked his family farm of 148 years, who's become, over the last few years, an advocate for family farmers after losing that farm back in 2020. Thank you so much for being here, Paul.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Paul Adams and I'm from Aliva, Wisconsin. I was the fourth generation on the family farm. A small creek that runs through the farm was named after the family and is still called Adams Creek. My forefathers and I did a good job at farming, practicing what we felt made us good land stewards. We transitioned to organic production practices in the year 2000. We are very proud of this. Growing up, there was never much cash. When the local doctor bills needed paying, it was often in the form of meat from a home-raised steer. This was in my father's time. Of course, with healthcare no longer being local, that practice is no longer acceptable. Tax time comes around once a year. In farming, most income goes back into the farm, paying bills and making improvements. With little income, there's little tax due. I remember a tax preparer telling me years ago, we need to find enough income to pay into the Social Security system for my retirement. Fast forward to the year 2020. After the farm being in the family for 148 years, and Adams Dairy still farming on Adams Creek, we were producing a semi-load or 5,000 gallons of organic milk daily. Due to monopolization and corporate greed and unequal government enforcement of organic rules, we filed for bankruptcy. Our farm is gone. Our daughter's dream of continuing another generation of Adams Dairy is gone, and our retirement is gone. But remember that tax preparer insisting I pay into Social Security? That is what I'm living on now, $1,400 per month, and I have Medicare for my health care needs. I need both Social Security and Medicare to survive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's so important that we remember that Paul's story is not unique. None of our speakers' stories today are unique, and we're so grateful for you being willing to step up and share them. Our next speaker, who I have the pleasure of introducing, is Dr. Robert Friedland. He's a retired ophthalmologist who worked with patients here in La Crosse for over 28 years. Dr. Friedland has additionally worked as a healthcare advocate and was previously the Wisconsin State Lead for the Committee to Protect Medicare. Welcome, Dr. Friedland.
Thank you. I come to you as a physician. I am still working a little bit part-time. There's a great shortage of physicians, especially in rural areas. And I was called back into service to help take care of people. I speak on behalf of myself, not on behalf of my previous employer and current employer. But I'm also come to you as a Medicare recipient. I too get Medicare. I too have a supplement. I too have pharmacy benefits. I too have deductibles. I also come to you as a patient. I too have laid down and been under the knife. I too receive care from the same employer that provides me with employment. I also come to you as a husband, a father, a brother, and a grandfather. So I worry about women's issues. I worry about my children, whether it's the environment, whether it's the benefits they receive, whether there will be Social Security for them. Just a little history. I think it's always nice to remember that Medicare started back in 1965 with Lyndon Johnson putting it into effect. There's a Part A, a Part B, a Part C, and a Part D. Immediately, Republicans have opposed Medicare. They like to call it socialism, communism, Marxism. I call it giving a damn about your fellow Americans. Just recently in 2022, Senator Rick Scott suggested sunsetting all federal programs, whether it be Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. He has denied it, but the tape tells the story. Paul Ryan suggested vouchers for Medicare. Well, it turns out that Medicare has a administrative cost of about 2%. It's a very effective way to deliver healthcare. However, with advertising and administrative effects and all the programs with private insurance, it costs 17% in administrative costs to deliver healthcare. Ronald Reagan wanted cuts. Newt Gingrich shut down the government. Meanwhile, 64 million Americans are on a Medicare. Many of my patients who did not have Medicare couldn't have eye surgery that they needed. They literally would say that they have to wait with this blinding cataract problem or whatever it was till they got to Medicare age. In fact, the United States is the only Western nation that doesn't have universal health care, let alone Medicare for seniors. Let me talk just a little bit about Social Security. As I said, I received Social Security. I'm glad to get that check. I'm glad to contribute. It was started by Franklin Roosevelt in 1935. In 1940, there were 222,000 people on Social Security. For minimal benefits, that grew to 3 million by 1945. And what it did was it brought seniors out of poverty. It guaranteed them a basic wage, hardly a living wage, but a basic wage that they could subsist. Right now, there's 46.7 million Americans on Social Security. Supposedly, by 2034, the Social Security Trust Fund will essentially be exhausted, and the Social Security Administration will only be able to pay 75% of benefits. But it should be known that right now, there's a cap on Social Security. This year, it's $160,000 a year. After you've earned $160,000, your employer no longer has to pay any Social Security taxes. You know, we talk about progressive and regressive tax policy. Progressive tax policy means that the wealthy pay a larger share of the tax burden because they're most able to afford it. A regressive tax policy would affect people in need more than those that are wealthy. Well, Social Security taxes are not even a flat tax. Let's advocate for a flat tax for Social Security. It is a regressive tax system that by stopping at $160,000, if you earn $200,000, if you earn $400,000, if you earn $2 million or $3 million or $5 million, you're only paying taxes on the first $160,000. We should lift the cap so that all Americans pay taxes at the same rate for all of their income. It is thought that this would bring in another $100 billion a year to the Social Security tax fund. A couple little side notes. I remember when it was George W. Bush who went to the file cabinet and said these were just, I forget his exact term, just goddamn pieces of paper in there, that the Social Security fund really was, just lousy pieces of paper. Well, those pieces of paper were federal treasury notes. You and I know that when you buy a T-bill, when you buy a savings bond for your grandson or granddaughter, you know it'll be there for them when they cash it in. It turns out that the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution says you're not supposed to deny the validity of the debt of the United States government. So quite frankly, George W. Bush committed an impeachable act by saying they were worthless pieces of paper when those were special issue treasury notes from the US government, and the US government does not default, of course, unless the Republicans fail to raise the debt ceiling. The second thing that even I've heard Democrats talk about was that the funds for the Social Security Trust had been spent. I remember, I think it was even Al Gore talked about the lockbox of Social Security. What the heck was he talking about? So the Social Security Trust Fund buys treasury bonds. The US government receives those funds. And what does it do when anybody buys a bond? Of course it spends it. What is it supposed to do? Take out a CD at maybe some Silicon Valley bank? Certainly the trust fund is not devoid of funds. The lockbox is a myth, and the taxes that go to support it are not progressive. Republicans say they're pro-life, yet they oppose Social Security. They oppose Medicare. They oppose Medicaid. They oppose support for women's health. They oppose the FDA. They oppose the CDC and recommendations of scientists and physicians how to deal with a pandemic that took millions of lives. They oppose aid to immigrants. They oppose healthcare to trans youth. They oppose efforts to end the #1 cause of death to children, gun violence. So I say, I call and we call on Congressman Van Orden to have courage to represent the constituents in this district, calling for him to protect our Social Security, protect our Medicare, our Medicaid, protect our youth, protect the environment, and protect our future. And we want him to ensure the blessings of liberty to us and our posterity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Friedland. To echo his words, Wisconsinites don't view these critical programs as bargaining chips in political games. They're things that us and our neighbors need and depend on to make ends meet, to live with dignity, and we paid into them. Our next speaker is Courage of America Council member, Wes Davis. Wes is the Director of Development for Equality, Illinois, where he works to build a better Illinois by advancing equal treatment and full acceptance of the LGBTQ+ community. Prior to moving to Illinois, Wes worked as the statewide field director of Equality Florida and as a former legislative aide in the Florida House of Representatives. Wes has devoted his career to developing winning strategies, boosting community awareness, and positively impacting all our communities. Thank you so much for being here today, Wes.
First and foremost, I'm sorry about Rick Scott. Usually I have to apologize for Florida when I'm on the move. But good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wes Davis, like she said, and I am a proud Courage of America council member and also the development director at Equality Illinois, the state's largest civil rights organization fighting for LGBTQ+ liberation. Now, you kind of already hinted at it. I have a little bit of a draw as I speak. I speak slowly. Your blood runs thicker in the South and a lot slower in Florida. So I figured I'd name that other elephant in the room. But everything you have heard about us is true. Everything that you have seen about us is true. Just wanted to name that. But being from Florida, as a recovering Floridian, I like to say, I have experienced firsthand what happens when far-right MAGA extremists have a seat at the table and lead the table as well. In 2016, I took the biggest leap of my life, coming out as an openly queer person. The only setback was that I was a regional political director for the Republican Party of Florida. As most queer people know, the call to be authentic is a very powerful thing, and it tugged on me hard, despite my obvious fears and my obvious reservations. When I finally did take that leap, there was nothing emotionally, physically, that I could have done to prepare myself in that moment. An onslaught of dehumanizing, discriminatory comments from party staff, volunteers, and elected leaders. This is who MAGA Republicans like Congressman Van Orden are. Gone are the days of limited government and personal liberties. Members of Congress like Congressman Van Orden are now standing in the doctor's room with you and your doctor while you make your personal medical decisions. Members of Congress like Congressman Van Orden are now mandating across the country and here in Wisconsin and in Illinois how parents and how guardians are to raise their children. And members of Congress like Congressman Van Orden are now forcing so many Americans, like myself, to create that emergency plan. That plan whenever you are at a movie theater, when you are attending a parade, going to a nightclub, or if I'm visiting my nephew at school, just in case someone shows up with an assault rifle. What we see here today is that this MAGA-controlled House is willing to plunge the entire country, and I'll go as far to say the globe, into a catastrophic default crisis to strip away programs like Social Security and Medicare. Programs that so many hardworking Americans pay into for prescriptions and to retire with dignity and respect. Speaker McCarthy, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, and Derek Van Orden are willing to play political games with our livelihoods. In their quest for power, they're willing to let the whole country suffer and hardworking Americans suffer. I do know this intimately. Almost a year ago today, my grandmother passed away. Everyone here knows someone who has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. While so many elected leaders, community leaders took care of their communities and took care of their cities and their states, my governor, MAGA Governor Ron DeSantis, decided to carry on like it was spring break in Daytona Beach. My grandmother's death was very sudden and very unexpected, but as a Medicare recipient, she was able to go down that journey with dignity and respect. Today, there are an estimated 1.2 million gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender Americans who are covered by Medicaid. My community, in addition to other communities all across the state of Wisconsin, across the Midwest, and across the country, are under attack. Just this last Wednesday, Equality Florida, the state's largest LGBTQ advocacy organization, issued a travel advisory to LGBTQ LGBTQ folks visiting the state and our allies visiting the state. That because of Ron DeSantis's reckless and violent attacks against queer Floridians, it is not safe to visit. This has to stop. I'm tired of asking politely. I am tired of sitting down. I'm tired of asking. I am here demanding that Congressman Van Orden, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Speaker McCarthy stop the attacks, stop playing games, fund Medicaid, fund Medicare, and get the job done that you were sent up there to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wes. Our last speaker is Tina Pullman. She's the founder and president of the APS Foundation of America, Inc. APSFA-TV is the only United States nonprofit health agency dedicated to bringing national awareness to antiphosphoid syndrome, an autoimmune disorder of the blood that can cause miscarriages, thrombosis, young strokes, and heart attacks. Tina is also on the City of La Crosse Committee for Citizens with Disabilities. Thank you so much for being here today, Tina.
Hi, my name is Tina Pullman and I live in La Crosse. I would first like to thank Joe Biden and the congressional Democrats for passing the Inflation Reduction Act. It is that kind of service we the people by elected officials that show us that it is possible that we all work to keep our country moving forward. I am here today as I am in this fight for a brighter future because I have pre-existing conditions, lupus and antiphospholipid syndrome, both of which are autoimmune disorders, and there is no cure. To keep these under control, I take over 20 medications. I rely on Medicare and Medicaid to help me afford these life-sustaining medications. I am extremely fortunate to have access to both of these essential programs. But the reason I have access should tell you something. It means I'm poor enough to receive both of them. It's terrifying to consider what the cuts that Representative Van Orden and the Republican leaders like Kevin McCarthy will need to make to programs I rely on to keep their political promises to the far right, ultra mega extremists. We should be strengthening and expanding these programs, not cutting them, because it is not just about me. And it's about all of us. For me specifically, that means my own parents, friends, and everyone that relies on Medicare and Medicaid. I will start with my parents. They're on Social Security and Medicare. All is well with their medications until they hit that donut hole. They just bite the bullet and pay up. Even though the prescriptions are expensive, they're in that donut hole sometimes 5 to 6 months. I also have friends that must decide which medications they'll take as prescribed, which ones they won't take, and which ones will just be cut in half. I understand why they do this. They have no choice financially because like me, live below the poverty level, or they are penalized because they're married. We must make medication more affordable for people on Medicare and in people in general. We must remove the donut hole altogether. Thankfully, the Biden administration is tackling these challenges. Thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, finally, the federal government can leverage the bulk purchasing power of Medicare to negotiate lower drug prices. For seniors on Medicare, insulin costs are now capped at $35 per month. And all Schedule I vaccines for seniors on Medicare are free. And this includes shingles and your Tdap. And guess who finally got her shingles vaccine? I'm immunosuppressed, and I was able to get my shingles shot early. This is real progress. And not a single Republican member of Congress supported it. That's not partisan. That's not rhetoric. It's a fact. The promise of Social Security was to ensure that no one in America should live in poverty, least of all our nation's seniors and people with disabilities. Did you know many people who are eligible for SSI may also be entitled to Social Security benefits? We can't afford these extra expenses, especially when we're disincentivized to work on disability. We are not allowed to have more than $2,000 in our bank accounts. If we do work, 50 cents on the dollar are taken from the gross after the first $200. And once you hit a certain amount of income, you're kicked off of disability, Medicare, Medicaid, housing, stamps, food stamps, well, everything. If your medical issue comes back full force, you tried, you get back, you start all over again, applying for disability and all the other programs. So at $15 an hour, which is will be the minimum wage, that is about 15 to 17 hours a week. Not even close to full time. No part-time job will give you healthcare or pay for your medications. It is the medication and the healthcare keeping me alive. These are true fears that every disabled person that would like to try to work or have a little money to feel like a valued member of society. Congress needs to increase what we can earn without penalty. Congress needs to increase what we can have in the bank. Congress needs to increase what we can earn without fear of losing Medicare, Medicaid, housing, food stamps, etc. That is why we should be expanding Medicaid in Wisconsin, which would free up people with disabilities on Badger Care to be able to have jobs and earn a livable income. We have an opportunity in the United States to lead. We have an opportunity to show we care about folks' health and well-being. So I asked that Representative Derek Van Orden, will you protect Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security for me and millions of others? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina. Thank you so much, Wes and Dr. Friedman and Paul and Senator Paff for being here today. Whether we are farmers or if we're disabled and some of the most vulnerable in our community, whether we've been working professionals our whole lives, Americans, Wisconsinites here in the third, Representative Van Orden's own constituents depend on these programs to make ends meet. And Wisconsinites want our neighbors to make ends meet. We want to retire with dignity. We want to live with dignity. We want our communities to thrive. And these are key programs to ensure that Wisconsin continues to look into a bright future, not only for us, not only for our parents in their golden years, but also for future generations, for our kids. As I said in my opening remarks, we told Representative Van Orden that we'd be coming today and asked him to make his constituents a simple promise to sign on with us to protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and pay the bills Congress already owes to avoid a catastrophic economic default. We are not bargaining chips. Our futures are not bargaining chips. Our day-to-day well-being is not a political bargaining chip. As you can see here, Representative Van Orden will not sign onto that promise, has not signed onto that promise. If you haven't had a chance yet, and you'd like to join us in calling on Rep. Van Orden and Congress to back off our benefits, please scan the QR code on the side of the bus and sign our petition. Talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, make sure that the people who are there in DC representing us are accountable to us, are looking out for us, and protecting the things that we have paid for our whole careers, that we depend on for our children to have bright futures, and that keep our neighbors doing well, healthy, fed. I am so grateful to all of you who joined us today. Thank you so much for your bravery, for your time, And thank you so much to Courage for America for putting this together, for doing the hard work of moving across the country and making sure that these conversations don't go unnoticed, that these issues are always talked about. They're so important to all of us. Thank you. Yes.
So so the basically we were told that women's contract. Light of the latest ruling by the judge in Amarillo. And I was like, the threat continuing and the way was called.
This one is a Women's March live from Florida, from I think yeah, Fort Myers, Florida.
We're at the Women's March downtown Fort Myers. Candidate Howard Sabb was speaking. He ran against Jennifer Simulka, who introduced the abortion ban, which is called HB 7. Let's listen in. Not your choice. Not your choice.
choice.
Not your
Not your
choice.
choice.
Not your
Not your
choice.
choice.
That was candidate Howard Sabb. He ran against Jennifer Simulka, who introduced this abortion ban, speaking out in opposition to it. If you'd like to hear more, come join us down at the courthouse with the Women's March. Thank you.
My name is Samantha Chapman. I'm the advocacy manager for South Dakota, or for the ACLU of South Dakota. This is Christine. She is our ASL interpreter today. So keep your eyes on her if you are hard of hearing. I want to start out today by acknowledging that we are standing on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Nakota, Lakota, and Dakota people. I think it's really important to acknowledge this because although I was born and raised here in South Dakota, I was not taught much about the people whose land that we stand on here today. We learned about Indigenous people as historical figures, but they are very much alive, well, thriving today here. This is the rightful land of the Oshodi people, and we can't talk about reproductive rights and reproductive justice without talking about Indigenous rights and Indigenous justice. I'm humbled and grateful to stand here on their land today. For 23 years, thanks. For 23 years, mifepristone, the first of two drugs that's used in the most common form of abortion in the United States, has been safely used to end pregnancies, with study after study confirming its safety and critical role in abortion and miscarriage care. In fact, mifepristone is safer than Tylenol. Since it was approved in 2000, more than 5 million people have safely ended their pregnancies using mifepristone. So why are we here today? Because a baseless lawsuit has made it all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. A far-right, dark money extremist group paid and found a judge to bring this case, trying to ban mifepristone nationwide. No one should be forced to be pregnant against their will. And for marginalized communities, for people living in poverty, people living in healthcare deserts, people living on reservations, and especially people living in abusive relationships, forced pregnancy can be dangerous and life-threatening. Mifepristone with misoprostol is the most used method of abortion in the United States. And here in South Dakota, where abortion is illegal, abortion pills through the mail are often the only option for most people. Anti-abortion extremists were never going to stop with overturning Roe. Their end goal is clear, outlawing abortion entirely in every state throughout the nation, and that's not their only goal either. This case alleges to be focused on safety. However, it's purely politically motivated attack, instigated and funded by extreme anti-abortion actors to further their agenda to ban abortion, birth control, and any other medication that doesn't fit within their ideology. Like abortion bans and restrictions, laws that restrict gender-affirming care for transgender and non-binary people are attempts to police and control people's bodies, families, and future. The organization that filed this lawsuit in Texas, Alliance Defending Freedom, is represented in the leaked emails to and from South Dakota Representative Fred Deutsch. We learned a lot from those emails, and one of the biggest takeaways is that the strategy they are using to attack transgender people is a page right out of the anti-abortion playbook. The fight for reproductive rights and transgender rights are at the core the same fight for bodily autonomy. Reproductive freedom is a fundamental constitutional right grounded in the privacy protections of the First, Fourth, Fifth, Ninth, and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution. Laws that restrict our access to abortion are a violation of our civil rights and liberties. The ACLU of South Dakota will never stop fighting for abortion rights. Thank you. Collectively across the nation, you are standing in solidarity with hundreds of thousands of abortion rights supporters who are turning out today at rallies just like this to demonstrate our opposition and demand better from the courts. But we need your help to keep showing broad support for abortion access and our fierce opposition to attempts to roll back reproductive rights. Now more than ever, we have to fight for everyone's reproductive freedom. It may feel like we are helpless to change things here in South Dakota sometimes, but even though this crowd is small, by coming to this rally today, you made a difference. You are showing all of those around you that standing up for abortion is brave and important. Rallies here and actions like this are happening all over the country today, and by organizing here in Sioux Falls, we are sending a loud message that South Dakotans matter, and we deserve and demand access to abortion. There are 4 things you can do today to change the landscape for abortion access here in South Dakota. 1, you can share accurate information about abortion care and access. One of the goals of this lawsuit was to create mass confusion nationwide, and it has done that. People do not know what kind of care, where they can get care, what is still legal right now. And at this time, sharing accurate information about abortion is critical. If you need access to an abortion, go to abortionfinder.org to get information on how to access care. Share this website far and wide. 2, commit to having conversations about abortion with your friends and family. You can sign up to receive an abortion conversation guide with us, and also our volunteers are passing them out. You can be responsible for helping to change hearts and minds. 3, donate to GEN, South Dakota's abortion fund. They direct your donations to people who need help paying for abortion care, including travel expenses and the procedure itself. This is direct mutual aid, and it's needed right now. And lastly, the papers. Connect with your elected officials. Call, write, email, show up to in-person events when you can. Let them know how you feel and that you will never stop fighting. Our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness cannot be fulfilled unless we have full agency over our lives. That promise is meaningless when we cannot determine our present and future lives without government intervention. We've always taken care of each other, and we need to stand up for each other now. We are in this fight together. Even when it is hard, we are never alone. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kim Florin, and I work with the local Abortion Fund and Support Network, the Justice Through Empowerment Network, or GEN. And I just want to acknowledge that the last few weeks have been confusing and overwhelming, but the chaos, confusion, and fear is the point. The religious extremists who are passing these laws want us to be afraid and uneducated. So I want to provide some clarity. Did you know you can order abortion pills online and have them mailed directly to your home? You can go to redstateaccess.com to find out more. RedAccess.org is the organization that will send you these pills. You have the right to leave the state for an abortion. There are organizations like Jen that will help you figure it out and pay for it. All you have to do is ask. People will always have abortions, regardless of what the law says. Self-managed abortion is power over our lives and futures. We will keep fighting against stigma around abortions and barriers to abortion. We won't stop until abortion is affordable, accessible, and available to anyone who needs it. The laws and courts don't keep us safe. We do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Dreisky, and I'm a board member of South Dakotans for Healthy Families, as well as project manager for South Dakota Faith and Public Life. Did you know that most religious and spiritual traditions around the world support reproductive justice and access to abortion care? There are more religions in the world and right here in South Dakota today that support the individual's rights to make decisions about their own reproductive health care, no matter what direction they choose. We are a country based on the idea of religious freedom, but right now, a religious minority has decided that their beliefs are more valuable and superior to us and the choices we make. We cannot and shall not wear the shame that a religious minority is trying to put on all of us. We must not let their religious fear be the deciding factor on if we can have access to any kind of health care. Taking our right to abortion care robs all of us of the ability to be our own moral agents and to be true to who we are in our own individual potentiality and our own responsibilities to ourselves, families, neighbors, and communities. This very loud religious minority, who is against us making our own decisions about our own health care, continues to try all avenues to enforce compulsory pregnancy. I repeat, a religious minority is imposing compulsory pregnancy on all people born with uteruses, no matter their age, no matter their circumstances, no matter at all. Abortion care is not only a religious freedom issue, it is a human rights issue. Yes. Raise your hand if you voted in the last election. Raise your hand if you voted in every election since you turned 18. Raise your hand if you are committing right now to vote at the next and all future elections. Our vote at every level, starting with school board elections, city elections, state elections, is how we continue this fight. Our not voting is part of the problem. We need to hold our families and friends accountable and make sure that they vote. We need to continue by the fight by voting and showing the generations before us that their fight was not in vain. We are making our ancestors proud as we are standing on their shoulders right now. In time, our children will need to stand on our shoulders. We cannot give up or give in. Vote and continue to vote as our lives and our children's lives depend upon it.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Okay, good deal. My name is Phoenix Pudsmick, Nix for short. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm a senior social work student at USD, and I am graduating this May with my bachelor's in social work. Thank you. I am the Vice President for Spectrum's Gender and Sexuality Alliance on USD's campus, and I am the current intern for the Transformation Project, who I'm here to represent today. I want to start by saying that there has been an atrocious amount of bills introduced into legislation, bills that have passed into law that strip us all of our rights and bodily autonomy. There's been such vicious attacks on the trans community with banning gender affirming healthcare for our trans youth, and they're not going to stop there. It's never stopped before. They've just gotten bolder. All of our rights are at stake here, and this didn't come from out of nowhere. The ADF, which is the Alliance Defending Freedom, is one of the most organized and influential Christian legal groups in this country. I'm going to tell you there are three main focuses. Number one, they focus on religious liberty for themselves. They want to insert their version of Christianity into the US legal system and educational system, including prayer, display of crosses, and other religious Christian symbols, which we see this happening right now across the country in our schools, in the legal system. Number two, opposition to abortion and bodily autonomy. They overrule our decisions that we have made with our doctors who know our health best. Number three, opposition to gay marriage and civil unions and adoption for LGBTQ+ people, as well as adoption for Jewish people, BIPOC people, and many others. They support conversion therapy and are in favor of homosexuality being a crime. They say that parents have the right to make educational and medical decisions for their children, but they take away the rights of parents with trans children and deny them life-saving, gender-affirming care, and they insert their religion into schools while removing any books and materials they deem offensive. And what do they find offensive? Anything to do with diversity. They seek to ban and criminalize anything that isn't strictly in their beliefs. This is not freedom. It is oppression on our end and supremacy on theirs. So many politicians and judges on every level are affiliated with the ADF. The ADF drafts up these laws for these legislators, and they make the rounds across the country making copycat bills. It's organized support for discrimination and oppression while they put themselves on a pedestal claiming religious freedom. Well, fuck them! This isn't freedom, it is oppression. And they're trying to assert their supremacy over us and deny us the rights to our own bodies, overruling our doctors and experts in their fields to keep themselves on top and in power. This is going to be a fight. It's going to be long and hard, but we all have to come together to support one another, to lean on each other and grow a community of unity and love. We need our supporters to step up and help us when we are too tired to fight, and we need a break for our own health and well-being. Yeah. So no matter what kind of person you are, if you're trans, LGBTQ+, a person of color, a feminist, an activist, we stand together and fight for our bodily autonomy. We are unified in this fight for human rights that have been denied to us for so long and have constantly been under attack from those who want us to conform and keep us down under their control. So here we stand, unified as a community of diverse, strong, and passionate people that will fight for each other, for their rights and yours, because bodily autonomy is our right as humans and as people. So look around you. These are your people, and we are standing with each other in this fight for justice and autonomy. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all staying warm. My name is Carissa Marlette. I'm here today representing the University of South Dakota Students for Reproductive Rights. Yeah. Unfortunately, our president wasn't able to be here today, so I will be speaking on her behalf. So hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come to this protest. My name is Lexi McKee Hammondway, and I am 21 years old, and I have always lived in a post-Roe world. I am originally from Sturgis, South Dakota. The closest abortion clinic was 6 hours away in either direction. My family knows people who have died because they could not access safe and legal abortions. But for those who could access abortion, it was because of the network of people they know. Our fight for abortion access can only be successful with the use of mutual aid. So I want you all to take a second to introduce yourself to your neighbor. Thank you. These are the people who will make the biggest change. To those of you who have been fighting for abortion rights for well over 20 years, thank you for your tenacity and fire. Yes. For those who are just getting into activism and wanting your rights back, I'm talking to high schoolers and college people. Our futures are at stake. It is time to step up, make your own chapters at your schools, create specialized organizations, volunteer at any of the amazing organizations that are here today, vote or run for office, but most importantly, never give up. Anti-choice groups, judges, and legislators want these times to be confusing and want us to give up, but we can't, and we won't. If you need resources, please use abortionfinder.org, genesd.org, or mayday.health. My friend Lydia Green here in the red, she will be distributing pink cards with privacy information along with more resources. We are all in this together. Thank you.
Hi, I'm kind of freezing my butt off up here. So, I'm Dr. Amy Kelly, and I am an OBGYN. I have been for over 15 years. I've been in the Sioux Falls area for the last about 12. And I use mifepristone every week, easily. I use it for miscarriages in order for women to avoid having surgery. I've used it for second trimester losses because it decreases the risk of bleeding when we have to do DNEs. I've also used it for stillbirths because it helps decrease the amount of time that someone goes from the start of their induction of labor to the end. These are all things that are used every day in OBGYN clinics around the South Dakota and around the country. It also Miffy honestly probably has some other gynecological uses that unfortunately we just have been unable to do enough studying for to find out. Avera uses mifepristone. They do. It's a medical drug. That's all it is, it's medicine. All medicines have risks, but overall, Miffy is super safe and it's very effective. Not being pregnant is always safer than being pregnant, which is of course why only the person who's pregnant should get to decide if they stay with them. Because it works so well, it's a target. It's a target for people who are against us making our own choices about our own bodies. Most abortions nowadays are actually medication abortions. And during the pandemic, that increased a lot. And we found that medication abortions are really very safe to do via telehealth, and they're really safe to put in the mail. And so over the last 5 years, we have tried to expand access to mifepristone because we know that it is safe. And that makes abortion more accessible and affordable for women who are in areas that don't have abortion clinics. And it's a super important thing. It helps it make it available and accessible. But that also makes it a huge target. It scares the anti-abortion forced birth crowd. It scares them because they know that if we have access to this medication, anyone, anywhere should be able to get an abortion in the first trimester when it's the safest and when not more than 90% of abortions happen. So this week has been especially hard for those of us in medicine because basically a judge with no medical knowledge or training has overruled the FDA. It took 4 years for this drug to get approved by the FDA. They literally went through mountains of data, thousands of studies. And you're telling me that a judge in Texas knows more than the FDA's 4 years of study and 20+ years of use of this drug? I don't think so. I don't think so. And if some random rogue judge, which was handpicked by this group, can do this, then what's next? What are they coming after next? The COVID vaccine? The HPV vaccine? IUDs? Contraception, because you know what's been around for 20 years too? Mirena IUDs. Almost exactly the same amount of time it's been on the market as Miffy. So does that mean they can come over that after that too? I don't know. It scares me, and they're gonna have to pull my IUDs out of my cold dead hands. We already know they're coming after hormone therapy for transgender people. And I'm sure that that is gonna be their next target, I have no doubt. Because we all know it doesn't end with abortion. Because this has never been about safety for women. This has never been about protecting children or babies, because we all know that if that were the case, we'd be doing a lot of other things. We would have comprehensive sex ed. We would have affordable, easy to access contraception for all people. We would have affordable daycare. We would have amazing schools with well-paid teachers. We would have affordable health care for all. If it was about protecting women and babies, it's not. It's about power. It's about control. And the fact that they're losing it and they're trying desperately to hold on to it. So I would just like to tell you that abortion is common. It's super common. Abortion is healthcare. Abortion is healthcare. Every single mainstream medical organization, including the AMA, agrees that abortion is healthcare. We all here and across our state and country have stories. We have our stories. We have our patient stories. And honestly, we need to start telling them. Because abortion is common, and we all know people who've had abortions. We know people whose lives have been saved. We know people whose lives have been changed, either because they could or could not obtain an abortion. This is personal stuff, and I know it is, and this is really hard stuff to share. But if you're able to, please do so. Because pushing all of this under the rug and pretending like it's always going to be there is how we got here to begin with. And so we need every single person in this country to understand that abortion is healthcare. We need every single person to understand that it's common and that someone they know and love has had an abortion. And so I really would encourage all of you, vote, yes, absolutely, speak up, come to these rallies. Those are all super important things. But in your everyday life, talk to people about this, because they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And we all know politicians lie about abortion. They lie to get people to feel a certain way. And they lie to get people to feel disgusted and horrified. And we know that's not the reality. We have to tell other people who are caring and who do care about women and children, we have to tell them why this is important. Because again, they don't know what they don't know. So those that are reachable, we have to be willing to reach out and talk about hard things. If you don't know how to do that, if you need some help, come talk to me. You know, talk to any of us that do this work. We all know how to talk to our friends and neighbors. We know what they care about. Talk about your values. If your value is protecting women and children, if your value is autonomy, if your value is, this is my healthcare decision that I have a right to have, go back to those values, because that's what it's about. And that's how we are going to reach people. So I would just encourage all of you to continue talking to your friends and neighbors and continue accruing allies, because we're going to need them. But also, I'm here to tell you abortion is healthcare and it's not going away, and we're going to fight for it every step of the way. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for sticking with us through the chilly weather and the rain and the wind. This issue is obviously very important to all of us here today. Otherwise it would not have been standing here. Sorry, my stutter is in full force today, of course. Thank you so much for coming out. It means a lot. Please keep coming to these things. It is so important that these numbers grow and grow and grow. That is how we make change. For those that want to be in community with one another, we're going to meet and gather informally at the Jones Building. The Source Coffee is there, Swamp Daddy's is there, there's Flying Santos Tacos, plenty of spaces to sit and get to know your fellow abortion advocates. So with that, thank you so much for coming out today. Have a great day.
And now,
So we meet yet again, we convene yet again to discuss the work that our administration has done and will continue to do to stand for the rights of all individuals to make decisions about their own bodies and their lives, and the importance of maintaining the integrity of systems that have been proven to work in the best interest and the health and well-being of the American people. And by that, I mean the FDA in particular, as it relates to the most recent court case. So since we were last together, many of us have been traveling the country. I'll speak for myself. I've now, I believe, met with at least 18 different states legislatures and thousands of people to talk about the experiences that they've had after the Dobbs decision. And sadly, it is what we anticipated it would be. We are having an experience where the women of America in particular have been in a state of fear about what this means for them, what this means for the people they love. We are looking at a situation in our country where healthcare providers, most of whom have had a calling to do the good and important work of taking care of other people, are in fear of losing their licenses, and worse, even being prosecuted and criminalized for the work that they do that is about providing healthcare for people in our country. I have met, for example, with a woman by the name of Amanda, who talked with me. I met with she and her husband about how when she was pregnant, she then had suffered a miscarriage, and 3 times went to seek medical care and was denied because of the healthcare providers' fear that they would be prosecuted or in some way penalized for helping her through her miscarriage, and only helped her when she got to the point where she had sepsis, a life-threatening situation. I have met with and talked with doctors who are in fear of losing their license, of being prosecuted, and of this situation actually having an impact on the relationships of trust that they have with their patients. This indeed is a healthcare crisis in America, and we have to acknowledge and understand it to be just that. And then 5 days ago, a district court in the state of Texas ruled to block access to abortion medication in every state in the country. In effect, if this ruling stands, creating what could very righteously be considered a nationwide ban, at least as it relates to what we believe to be half of the women who, when seeking abortion care, receive it through abortion medication. So we have, in effect, a situation where politicians and politics have driven lawyers to go to a court of law where a judge who is not a medical professional is making a decision to undo the ruling over 20 years ago of the FDA that declared a specific medication safe and effective for the American people. So one must appreciate that when we think about the integrity of our healthcare delivery systems and attacking the very credibility of the FDA on this one matter for the sake of politics and a political agenda, the wide sweeping ramifications this can have. And I'd ask every person who is aware of this to understand the implications of this ruling by just opening your medicine cabinet. Because it is very likely that you rely on some type of medication prescribed by a doctor, approved by the FDA, to alleviate your health concerns and to improve your condition in life. So the ramifications of this decision 5 days ago are wide sweeping, and for that reason require, we do believe, a very serious response. And again, I will state that our administration and our President Joe Biden has been very clear that we will stand to protect the integrity of the healthcare system in America, and we will stand to protect those who have a right to be able to make decisions about their own body and their own life. Also on this issue is the real risk of damage to and attacks on patient privacy. So let's think about that. 26 years ago, in 1996, our country agreed that we needed this thing called HIPAA, because we all agreed that when it comes to our medical records, there are just certain things that should be private. If you choose to share it, you can, but it's your private business. It's the business between you and your healthcare provider and nobody else's business. So we passed HIPAA to say that medical records would be private. There was an exception in HIPAA that said that if law enforcement needs it in pursuit of a criminal matter, an investigation, if they had a court order, they may have access to those records. Well, what's the connection between that and where we are now? Since the Dobbs decision in particular, many states have proposed and passed laws that are now going to criminalize healthcare providers for providing reproductive health care. It's going to be a crime, which means that it is very likely if law enforcement requests your personal and private medical records, they may be entitled to receive them. So part of the conversation that we are having today is what we can do, and Secretary Becerra will talk about that in particular, to reinforce protections for patients' privacy as it relates to their records and their communications with their physician. So again, I will say our administration is fighting on every front to do what we can and what we must to protect the American people and the integrity of the healthcare system in our country. And with that, I'm going to now pass the mic, as it were, to our Attorney General, Merrick Garland, to give us an update on litigation and the actions that the Department of Justice has taken in this regard.
Thank you, Vice President Harris, for bringing us together today. The fallout from the Supreme Court's decision last summer to overturn Roe v. Wade has been swift and severe. Since then, the Department of Justice has worked with commitment and urgency to defend the reproductive freedoms that are protected by federal law. During our last meeting, I discussed the work of the Department's Reproductive Rights Task Force to safeguard federal protections of reproductive rights. Today, and following President Biden's memorandum on further efforts to protect access to reproductive health care services, I want to provide another update on 3 important areas of our work. First, we continue to advise federal agencies on legal issues relating to reproductive health in the aftermath of Dobbs. We are defending agencies as litigation arises. More than 2 decades ago, the Food and Drug Administration approved the drug mifepristone as safe and effective to terminate early pregnancies. But a decision issued last Friday by the District Court for the Northern District of Texas would displace the FDA's expert judgment and roll back the agency's approval of mifepristone. Justice Department strongly disagrees with the court's unprecedented decision to do that, an Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine versus FDA. We therefore appealed the decision and we filed a motion for a stay pending that appeal. As our filings make clear, the decision would severely harm women across the country. It would deprive patients of a safe and effective medication to manage their reproductive health, and it would allow doctors to challenge FDA approval of any drug or any other federal action that allegedly injured third parties. This could happen to any medication that Americans rely on, no matter how essential it is, and no matter how long ago it was approved. The Justice Department will continue to defend the FDA's approval of mifepristone, as well as the FDA's role as the expert body that Congress has designated to make decisions about the safety and efficacy of prescription medicines in this country. Second, we are continuing to vigilantly monitor state laws and enforcement actions that threaten to impinge on federal protections of reproductive rights. For example, we are continuing to litigate our challenge to Idaho's abortion ban to the extent that it conflicts with the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, known as EMTALA. As we explained in our filings in that case, Idaho's law prohibits abortion when it is the medically necessary treatment to stabilize a patient's emergency medical condition. Last August, the District Court for the District of Idaho granted our motion for a preliminary injunction blocking enforcement of Idaho's law as applied to medical care that is required by EMTALA. In addition, as I said on the day that Dobbs was announced, women who reside in states that have banned access to comprehensive reproductive care must remain free to travel to states in which that care is lawful. And under the First Amendment, individuals must remain free to inform and counsel each other about the reproductive care that is available in other states. Justice Department will defend these bedrock constitutional protections, and we will continue to evaluate private party litigation that would benefit from our participation. Third, we are continuing to work to protect healthcare providers and individuals seeking reproductive health services. In this regard, we are enforcing the Freedom of Access to Clinics Act, known as the FACE Act. That law prohibits anyone from obstructing access to reproductive health services, including abortion services, pharmacies that provide reproductive health services, and pregnancy counseling services, through violence, threats of violence, or property damage. We are working to ensure that federal prosecutors across the country are equipped to bring FACE Act cases. But in addition, we are conducting training for U.S. attorneys' offices on the FACE Act. Our National Task Force on Violence Against Reproductive Health Care has prepared a training webinar for state attorney general's offices. And we have emphasized that Civil Rights Division attorneys in the Justice Department are always available for consultation and technical assistance. I'm grateful to Associate Attorney General Vinita Gupta, who is leading these very important efforts for the department. And I'm grateful to all the professionals across the department who are working to ensure America's freedom to reproductive rights protected by federal law. Together and with the people in this room, we will continue to fulfill the Justice Department's founding responsibility to protect the civil rights of all Americans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Actually, then we're gonna now turn to Chair first. Yes.
Actually, let me begin by thanking the Attorney General for acting so swiftly to protect reproductive rights. And Vice President, thank you for your longstanding work to champion the healthcare rights and the privacy of Americans throughout the country, and certainly women when it comes to reproductive rights. And to Jennifer Klein, the co-chair of this task force, thank you for the work that your team has been doing overall. We are trying to do everything we can at the Department of Health and Human Services to continue to protect those rights, the access that Americans have grown accustomed to having. On top of working with the Attorney General on this case that we have before us on the mifepristone medication, we're also now taking action. Today, we announced that we will be issuing a proposed rule that will try to protect those privacy rights that the Vice President spoke about. We want to make sure that people can continue to access the doctor, the healthcare they need, and know that when they do so, that the information that is collected remains private in the hands of that individual and the caregiver that provided the information. We believe that this rule will assure that doctors, other healthcare providers, and health plans will not be disclosing individuals' protected health information, including information related to reproductive healthcare under certain circumstances. By safeguarding this sensitive information related to reproductive healthcare, the rule will bolster trust between that individual, the patient, their healthcare providers and healthcare plans, and enable those individuals to obtain high quality, accurate, and appropriate healthcare information, and help healthcare providers when it comes to giving complete and accurate information to their patients. We want to take a minute at HHS to acknowledge the people that make that possible in our department as well. And here I have to thank Director Melanie Fontes Rayner, who is the director of our Office for Civil Rights. She is the one that is working with the Department of Justice, with White House and others from HHS to make sure we continue to be a good partner in this effort to protect a woman's rights. Her team, Director Fontes Rayner's team, has been conducting listening sessions throughout the country. We've heard firsthand from women how their healthcare providers are being targeted by hostile actors, how there are people who are trying to weaponize this private information that's protected, they're trying to punish those who seek legal reproductive health care. And I think it's important once again to emphasize, these are people who are being attacked for trying to access healthcare that is legally presented to them and legally available to them. This rule will strengthen privacy protections for patients and providers. And we hope that what we can do is send a clear message that we will continue to make sure that people are afforded their rights. I also want to mention that the Department of Health and Human Services will be issuing guidance to help protect patients' electronic health information, including their information related to reproductive health care. The guidance will make clear that patients have the right to ask their electronic health information generally not be disclosed by their physician, hospital, or other healthcare provider, including to other healthcare providers. The guidance also reminds healthcare providers that HIPAA's privacy protections continue to apply to patients' electronic health information. And finally, Madam Vice President, HHS is announcing that it will issue a new notice of funding opportunity to establish a safe and secure national hotline to provide referral services for women in need of accurate information about their legal reproductive health care options. The hotline will provide information to patients served by the Title X Family Planning Program who request information related to prenatal care and delivery, infant care, foster care, or adoption, or pregnancy termination. Without these steps, individuals may be hesitant to interact with providers or health plans or pharmacies or certain digital health applications out of fear that their data will be tracked and or shared with the state agencies, law enforcement officials, or others. And so we want to make sure we do everything we can to ensure patient privacy, bolster trust between individuals and their healthcare providers, and enable individuals to obtain high quality, appropriate healthcare. Madam Vice President, I think you see that this is a team effort to try to protect the rights of all Americans when it comes to their healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Sarah. Great. Now we're going to transition to the closed task portion of our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And is urgent empowerment. But what is that? What does that mean for that individual? What does that person need for their resources? And think outside the box. Again, some of the things we mentioned earlier. You know, maybe you just need support groups. Maybe you need referrals for therapy. Maybe you need a place to just heal. And that's some of the things that we're going to honor. We've spent a number of hours in our community just these last 9 months, just getting the message out. That's part of being part of your community and knowing that people have a place to call and be for safety. So we've done a number of presentations on all different kinds of disciplines and settings. So we will continue to think outside the box. We will continue to support wraparound services to be innovative. We want to take the lead, and we take it very serious. So
That is apparent, yes.
so,
Great job. So if someone's in crisis or knows someone experiencing domestic violence and needs immediate assistance, where can they access One Fire services?
Okay, so there's a number of ways. We do have some that come to the office, but we can also go on scene. If a person is in danger, always law enforcement has to come in first and secure it, and then we can go. But also, if you're just beginning and you're wondering, is this the way to live? Call us, and we will help you. We will schedule an intake. We can walk you through it. As Becky said, sometimes you don't even know how to go get hygiene items, food. We can help with all those. But call us. If you're just beginning to question, we will answer. And again, we can schedule an intake. You don't have to come in person. We have a hotline after hours.
And we're going to put those numbers on the screen right now for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then during the day, we have the main number. We also have an email that if, you know, maybe you've got a private email that your perpetrator isn't monitoring. And so we're pretty innovative on how we can talk to women. We're very cautious about reaching out because that can create a violent situation. So we have to allow that person to the room to contact us without us causing any more harm.
Absolutely.
But reach out to us, and you know, having been a survivor from childhood and as a young woman myself, I know it's possible. I know it's possible to survive, and I know it's possible to live and live well. And that's what we would want for all survivors. And it's been an honor to be a part of One Fire.
Well, thank you so much for everything you do. Thanks for sharing your insights and your story and your insights. That's all the time we have for now. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now, Cherokee Nation Tribal Counselor Candace Teehee shares a message from the council.
Osio, Candace Teehee Tawado Yonek Siwo Tawado Jalek. In English, my name is Candace Teehee, and I serve Tahlequah, District 2 on the Cherokee Nation Tribal Council. Traditional Cherokee people believe as one of our core cultural values. Those two words together, mean that we are all to hold one another's existence as sacred, and this belief should guide how we treat one another at all times. In Cherokee Lifeways, all people are to be treated as sacred and as equally important in our communities. And for Cherokee women, this power and importance was historically recognized because women were the sole owners of domestic property. Clan membership, which was once the basis for Cherokee citizenship, could only be passed from mother to child. And Cherokee women have always held vital roles in our ceremonies. In historic Cherokee communities, women were life givers, and they also gave access to citizenship, held property, and served as the linchpin of Cherokee families. However, in these modern times, it is a shocking truth that 4 out of 5 Indigenous women will experience violence, and that this violence often will come at the hands of a partner. And Cherokee women are no exception to this sobering statistic. Women and children in Cherokee Nation are experiencing the trauma of family violence. But Cherokee Nation is taking proactive steps to combat this problem. Although there is no simple, easy answer, Cherokee Nation is dedicated to eliminating violence against women and to healing our families and our communities. I was proud to serve as the council representative to the Task Force to Protect Women and Families, established by executive order in December 2022. The Cherokee Nation Domestic Violence Lethality Reporting Act of 2021 legislation, which I proudly sponsored, mandates the use of lethality assessments in situations where domestic violence has occurred. The task force also recommended expanding services and increasing staffing. And Cherokee Nation has stepped forward to meet those identified needs in a number of ways. For example, we have seen Cherokee Nation open a full-time domestic violence shelter with the space and services to house multiple families. But despite these advancements, we still have a long road ahead as our nation continues to take active steps to create wraparound services and support for survivors of family violence. I truly believe these steps will help our families and our communities realign with our cultural teachings. These changes are helping to bring the deeply Cherokee idea of Uskede de Gadiyela Seste to the forefront, so we as a people will again hold our women and children as sacred. Wadon.
Widow Counselor Teehee. And now Deputy Attorney General Chrissy Nemo provides closing remarks, followed by Cherokee National Treasurer Tommy Wildcat to close us out. As always, Widow for being here. Doda Dago Hunty.
OCO, I am Chrissy Ross Nemo, the Deputy Attorney General for Cherokee Nation, and I am so proud to be joining you today as we wrap up this important and informative conversation about protecting women and families within the Cherokee Nation Reservation. As you heard on today's program, Cherokee Nation remains committed to protecting women and children from violence. More than ever, our government is stepping up to support survivors of domestic violence. Through the leadership of our administration and the Council of the Cherokee Nation, we have more resources, more staff, and stronger laws to protect Cherokees and to prosecute perpetrators within our reservation. We are leading Indian country when it comes to exercising our sovereign rights to bring justice for Native survivors. Native American women suffer from violent crime at some of the highest rates in the United States. With non-Indians constituting a significant percent of the overall population living on the Cherokee Nation Reservation, it is imperative we have the jurisdictional authority to protect our citizens. The Cherokee Nation believes a responsible and respectful government should make it a priority to serve survivors of domestic violence. Working together, the Attorney General's Office, the Cherokee Nation courts, and the Cherokee Nation Marshal Service more effectively combat abuse and violence. We will continue to offer innovative programs and services that curb the rate of domestic abuse and provide services to both survivors and perpetrators. The tribe has an award-winning blueprint for how to help women and families in emergencies, the One Fire Advocacy Program. It represents the best values of the Cherokee Nation with an emphasis on wellness, culture, and family. Our people deserve to live healthy and secure lives within the Cherokee Nation. We have always looked at how our decisions will impact the next 7 generations. Providing a safe future for our children and grandchildren is an important part of securing that future. Wado.
哇，多大个还有那个的，你要不要你做去？
Karen, I love it. You're in your Sunday finest, right? Preach. People showed up.
It's so bad that he's.
Rockers all wear makeup. Get your flowers. Seeing this lady, Mary Poppins, I forget. Wardrobe malfunction. It's like an animal, so let's move on, people. Need to go home and shave. This is illegal in some states now. Stop that. Vote. Activate. Participate. Bye-bye.
Now I'm doing on this next video here.
Speakers who have shared their experience. Their voices are also critical to this movement. Show some love to our amazing PPMW CEO, Laura Nair.
Now I'm playing while we're waiting for the Women's March to come on live, tape 3. For some reason why they're still waiting for the march to start. So figure out what's going on there. that's waiting in the background. Don't you hear Governor Hochul in New York City and New York State leaders discussing abortion access from yesterday, for those that did not hear that.
Joined by fellow champions of freedom. We have gathered here this afternoon, hastily I might add, but I'm delighted that we could be joined by our United States Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, our Attorney General Tish James, and our Majority Leader Andre Stewart Cousins, as well as advocates, champions from Planned Parenthood, Kristen Dart from Planned Parenthood Empire State X, and also a number of other members of my administration. My question is this: when will this stop? Women across this nation are sick and tired of being treated as though we have no rights. Started with Dobbs, not even a year ago, when they wiped out all the gains that women had fought for, my mother's generation fought for, and that my generation and my daughter's generation perhaps took for granted, the right to have a legal abortion in the United States of America. With the Dobbs decision, it's hard to imagine it could get much worse. But what we saw this week was a very dark week in the history of our nation, in the history of women across this country. So I would say this, from the extremist MAGA judge in Texas, who thinks he knows more about science and facts and research than the entire thousands of workers at the FDA, to last night, in the dead of night, under the cover of darkness, with the stroke of a pen, what the governor of Florida did was basically reduce women to having no rights at all. Because the right to an abortion is a fundamental right.
Okay, now you're gonna hear more of the Women's March Los Angeles. On this one, I think we not see Borp. So those of you who didn't see that, well, we can watch that.
Hola amigos, una vez más en estos bellos lugares, viendo que la gente está protestando sobre la illegal abortion. No sé a qué hora empezó, pero decía que yo iba a irme, los vi, y entonces parece que no es tan grande la marcha, pero sí se está protestando. Allá al fondo, si vemos, están haciendo un baile. Esto es están enfrente del First Court. Es un parque donde siempre vienen a protestar y bueno, se ve que está muy animada. Los dejo para que escuchen un momento. Ven aquí estando de legal abortion, no sé. La verdad es que no sé si es para que lo legalicen y para que no lo hagan. No sé, no puedo estar diciendo. Se manifiestan La gente está en sus letreros donde sean. De arriba, de arriba. Esto yo corto hasta aquí porque este se va a quedar y yo ya no tengo tiempo. Aquí vemos que toda la calle, perdón, toda la calle ay, están parados los vehículos porque esto se va a continuar, no sé hasta dónde. Parece que es una marcha que van a hacer más, se van a alargar, pues, o sea, van a hacer algo de así caminar, pero toda la gente, pues, la que tiene tiempo va y la.
And now I'm going to pause the recording again.
There's more of us. There's more of us.
Then there are that.
So activists like us have a hard road to toe, you know, like we have to continue to fight to uphold this fundamental idea and to expand it to include all of us in the country. We have to get to the biggest we that we possibly can. And we saw in the last month, the attack on the WT students who were planning a drag show to benefit the Trevor Project, which is engaged in trying to keep LGBT kids from killing themselves. What could be objectionable about that? But they found objection. And the reason that they found objection is because the opposition to our community, they have to take queer people and separate them from women, separate them from communities of color, and separate them from trans folks, because when we're separate, we're less strong, we're less together. And there's not more of us in each one of these little pockets. But when we see through that, and when we come together, we're stronger and we can win, and they know that. So shout out to Amarillo, who's really been showing up and showing out in the last month. They're probably like, what is going on in Amarillo? And meanwhile, what is going on in Amarillo? The organizations like the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine and the Alliance for Defending Freedom have been here at work in the dark, in the shadows, you know, trying to cobble together this sham case to make sure that American democracy only extends to a select few who look like them, while stripping freedoms from the rest of us. And we know that they don't believe that we all have the same right to equal protection, rights, and dignity. And I think that's is one of the most concrete examples of this. How many people actually read the decision? Yes. So when you go, you look through, if you want to read, the American Bar Association agrees that he's one of the very few judges deemed to be just barely qualified. He meets the minimum expectation. And we've seen him attempt to exclude women and girls, gay and trans children, and numerous others from the promise of America over and over again. And his opinion of the Reproductive case was riddled with anti-abortion rhetoric. He is a career activist, a career politician, and his anti-abortion crusading has lasted far, for his entire adult life, far beyond his law degree. So, like, can we get a solid thumbs down? Can we get a boom? Can we get a boom? So, the fight to protect our rights and our families and our democracy and our communities doesn't happen every 4 years. It doesn't even happen every 2 years. A lot of times you see people getting ramped up for elections, but the truth is that we cannot have trickle-down power. We cannot have trickle-down organizing. It has to come from the ground up. We have to care about individuals in our communities. We have to care about individual and local races. And that will, every 2 or 4 years, happen to benefit the people that run. And we have to make sure that we're electing public servants all up and down our ballot when we're talking about city.
Pretty bird.
Anywhere that reflect our values, because let's remember they're public servants. And if you look at history in our country, you know that big change has never actually been initiated by people in Congress or the Supreme Court. It has always come from a groundswell of people just like us until they were forced to bend to the will of the people. And so that's what we're going to do again. We're going to force them to hear our voices. We're going to force them to understand that the America that we want to be, that we're going to fight for, in the America that we're going to bring into fruition, we will not go back. We will not go back. We won't. We won't. We won't. We won't.
We have delivered political, electoral consequences to the enemies of our communities over and again. We saw a red wave that was a red trickle. We saw 2018 that had historic outcomes. We saw 2020 where, you know, who was shown the door and got evicted. And we're gonna do it again in 2024. And so it's important for all of us to be together, to get to know each other, to continue to keep our eye on the ball. And you know what, listen, we get it. We're tired too. We know that you all are tired. We know that the road is long and it's grueling and it's hard to continue to be here. Some of us, for the second time, some of our elders were here, were in the fight for abortion the first time around. And yep, shout out. And shout out to the elders who are here and who are still here. We know that we have to do the unglamorous job of building political power. And that doesn't always look like it looks right now. Most of it's stuffing envelopes and moving boxes and having hard conversation, talking to families, changing opinions, changing hearts and minds. This is not glamorous work. This is hard work. It's privileged work. And it's also our job. We are the leaders of this particular leg. And we know that the fight against sexism and misogyny is millennia old. We know that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and we know that we won't go back. So what it means is that we're here today in the community, and the most important thing that happened is we already showed up, and that's half the battle. And so what I would implore you is that we keep showing up, that we stay defiant, never defeated, that our movement is big and strong enough to win all of the things that matter for all of us, and that we stay with allies and that we don't get separated from the people whose futures depend upon ours and ours to theirs. So shout out to everybody for showing up here today. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. And usually I'm a little bit more rah-rah. Very sick this week. My allergies have me all the way out the game. But I think that instead of faking it, I'm just going to say that up here because we don't always show up at 100%. We don't always show up at our best. We can't always be, the most perfect version of ourselves. And so I think it's important to show up authentically in this moment. I think it's important to say, this is who we have, it's who we're working with. This is our community and this is how we're going forward. So here I am with my leaking eyes, my sleeping. I'm barely holding back a cough and have been for a few minutes. And I'm here in the fight here in Amarillo. And so today we're rallying. And tomorrow we're going to organize, we're going to mobilize, we're going to continue to connect with people both in Texas and in the region. We're going to continue to build power, and we're not going to allow continued sharing cases to go through this court in the dark, and we're going to continue to shine a light, and we're going to build a kind of community and the kind of future that we all deserve here, right here in Amarillo, in the Panhandle, and in Texas, and we're going to so shout out for shining a light on Lyrics Kangaroo Court. Shout out to the Amarillo folks who have kept the light on here in Amarillo. Shout out to Amarillo Women's March, who has been one of the most active women's march groups since 2017. And shout out to all the rest of the amazing speakers that you're getting. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rachel, for grounding us in that moment. We have one more hand for Rachel. All right, next, I would love to introduce Amanda Shakur. Educator and facilitator.
Sure, love, whatever you'd like. Thank you.
Abortion Fund in Bloomington, Indiana. She currently works as the interim organizing co-director at the National Network of Abortion Funds, supporting the development of network-wide and cross-country strategies to build power for abortion access. Born and raised in Hampton Roads, Virginia, she began organizing with the community to fight against targeted restrictions on abortion providers in Virginia, alongside various reproductive health and birth organizations, working for alternatives to the death penalty and supporting the campaigns of progressive politicians running for local office.
Find those Doritos are those downstairs.
Yeah, I just got it. They were on sale on Amazon today. Just got them.
For a lens of Black liberation and abolitionist values. Both Amanda Shakur.
And I am with the National Network of Abortion Funds. We envision a world where every reproductive decision, including abortion, takes place in thriving communities that are safe, peaceful, and affordable. We envision a world where all people have the power and resources to care for and affirm their bodies, identity, and health for themselves and their families in all areas of their lives. I have been working with and for abortion funds, like I said, for the last 8 years. And I have seen the truly devastating impact of unwarranted abortion restrictions on people and their families and their access to health care. And just like with every other abortion restriction, the harm will fall hardest on those who face economic injustices and barriers to health care, especially Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, queer people, trans people, and disabled people. We are here in solidarity with and for abortion funds, including our network of 100+ funds. That's right, that's right. You know, more than 100 funds strong. People who have abortions, providers, and support folks are facing increasing and unprecedented criminalization and attack. This court ruling is an unconscionable political interference with basic healthcare and basic human rights, with the end goal to end medication abortion altogether. We know that the hits are going to keep on coming, but we also know that abortion funds will not allow our government and judicial systems to chip away at our basic human rights. We will rise up together. Are we going to stop fighting for access to health care in our communities? No. Are we going to stop supporting people who seek abortion care? Are we going to stop organizing to end the criminalization of abortion in all of its forms? Hell no! Hell no! Together, we are going to keep building our political power, keep disrupting, keep funding abortions, and keep shutting shit down until we get to true autonomy, justice, and liberation for all people. Join us in the fight at abortionfunds.org. All love, power, and solidarity to the people.
No, more like, oh, yes. All right, so earlier, Richard had mentioned the WTN kids who were organizing their own communities. Next, we're introducing Kay Line, a trans masculine non-binary person and a current student at West Texas A&M University, and one of the many students who recently protested against censorship of drag presented by the university's president. He's a first-year student currently studying digital communication and media. Kay also serves as the secretary for Spectrum, the student-led LGBT support community at WTMU. They are an artist, activist, and general supporter of human rights both nationally and internationally. Folks, Kay Klein.
Even after the past month of doing public speaking and protesting, I'm still not used to speaking in front of other people, so please excuse me. So I first want to thank Suhail, Celine, Allison, all the other members of the Women's Lurch who I have been in contact with over the past few weeks. Working with this organization has been a drain for me and for many other people who I've protested with. So all of you have helped us out so much, and I could not be more grateful to the Women's March. So as already stated, I'm one of the students who recently protested for free speech and expression at West Texas A&M University.
Our free speech and our right to decide our plan in life are protected by the Constitution. And now lawmakers are pushing against our rights as citizens of the United States in the name of safety. And I put that in quotations. What sort of safety do they believe in? Is it truly safe for government officials to ban the way someone expresses themselves out of personal preference? Is it truly safe for lawmakers to ban a life-saving medication for millions of Americans just because they don't see the use of it or personally think it's morally wrong? Whether it's about drag or mifepristone, the policymakers of this country are not giving their people safety. What they are giving us is nothing short of a self-serving agenda that limits the freedoms of US citizens. As someone who cannot be on birth control for various health reasons, I find that mifepristone is an extremely valuable resource, even if I may never have to use it in my lifetime. Having that safety net is critical to me and to many other people just like me. I may be asexual, so I don't have to worry about getting pregnant from a partner. But what frightens me most is the possibility that if I were to become pregnant from being sexually assaulted, I would have no way out. That is a fear that too many people have. And now that fear is being turned into a reality. If this issue is really about safety to policymakers, don't you think that this would come into consideration at some point? And yet, time and time again, our needs are shunned in favor of politicians' self-righteous viewpoints. Our safety no longer resides in the hands of the government. They have never been concerned about the citizens who depend on them. What they are concerned about is bending the law to fit their own views, rather than the views of those whom they're meant to represent. I think I speak for everybody currently here when I say these politicians do not represent the citizens. Our voices are not being heard. Our democracy is being chipped away at by people whose only goal is to silence those who are not like them. Our free speech and our rights to medical freedom are under attack. And we are not going to stand by and watch as these people strip us of our security. We are going to step up and fight against these bad actors who believe that safety resides in denying the rights of other people. And we will not be safe, nor will we be silent until our rights are secured. Thank you. Next, we have Tiara Cooper. Tiara Cooper is a national community organizer and activist passionate about faith, justice, and Black liberation. Experiencing a felony conviction as a teen propelled Tiara Cooper into a lifetime mission to end mass incarceration, felony disenfranchisement, and dismantle historical systems of white supremacy. She advocates at the local, state, and federal level on policy issues impacting Black, Brown, and poor people. Tiara is co-director of In Defense of Black Lives Dallas and founder of Rooted in Liberation. Welcome, Tiara Cooper. When I say fist up, you say fight back. Fist up, fist up, fist up. See, we've been in a battle. But on June 24th of last year, a war was declared on women. The overturning of Roe versus Wade and the Texas abortion bans and trigger laws went into effect, criminalizing women at any stages of pregnancy who wanted or needed an abortion. We recently witnessed the attempt of mifepristone on one of the safest abortion pills in the nation, who proposed to be eliminated off the shelves. Extremists around this country have denied us of our safety. We've been targeted and preyed upon as women, making us instant targets, those who already warned of the state, simply for declaring that our bodies were still our choice. So I want to thank each and every one of you for choosing to be here on today in spite of all danger and precaution. That notifies to me that we still have choice, we still have autonomy, and we still have decisions to make. My name is Tiara Cooper, and I'm here on behalf of the movement for Black Lives, in defense of Black Lives Values, and we stand in defense of bodily autonomy, reproductive rights, and access to safe healthcare, especially for Black women who are the most vulnerable people and the most impacted by these policies. Recognizing that Black women have been denied a range of services and protections since the moment our ancestors entered into the country, stripped down in chains, auctioned under their own will. See, we've never had a choice that wasn't first fought for. I'm reminded that our bodies didn't legally belong to us ever. It belonged to the state. Freedom, or shall I say legality, isn't a given. It must be fought for. It must be taken. And it is us who has kept us safe, and it is us who will keep us safe. It's thicker than road, y'all. Though the roads get weary, the rulings continue to pile up. Discrimination and abuse are becoming more prevalent in many states. We continue to fight. We will continue to fight for our human rights and our dignity intact. See, they can try, but they cannot strip us or deprive us of our dignity. The attack on women's rights are only the beginning. The war on women is here and it never left. I'm here not only as an organizer and activist, but I am a mother of two beautiful daughters who I wish in the future they have choices. I am a sister of many. I am a receptor of an abortion. I am a freedom fighter, and I'm here as a woman who has experienced the effects of limited access to health care, the overwhelming barriers. Oh my God, the barriers of getting an abortion, having to go outside of your home, limited resources, and feeling like there was no one I could talk to without creating an environment of harm. A woman who has witnessed countless acts of violence at the hands of the state. The same state that kills, surveils, and criminalizes us on a daily simply for being Black in America. The same state with a governor that has allowed guns to overshadow the lives of children. A food deserted state that can't even seem to keep baby formula on the shelves. Yeah, that's the same state that seeks to take our right to choose. Talk about it. So I say, keep your hands off my body and keep the legal press on the shelves. No act of state violence, misogyny, racism, or bullshit will silence the people. The rulers of those called to serve us, but we're taking a step back and we decided to serve ourselves in the deepest forms of love, care, and liberation by any means necessary. We're the people. And where there is people, there is power. All power to the people. Our love to the people. Our hope to the people. Our joy to the people. The fight continues. Thank you so much, Sarah. Truly a reminder that we are the ones who agree.
Oh, wait, no. So 1 second, record. Going back to the beginning of the speech.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on your Saturday. We know everyone leads such busy, busy lives. We're so grateful that you show up for your community, that you show up for Amarillo, and you show up for the entire country. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Allison Tovar. I'm a digital organizer at Women's March, and I want to start today by giving honor to the Kiowa tribe, whose ancestral lands we're standing on today. I also want to thank partners and those in solidarity watching from home. We're here today because Judge Matthew Kazmarek ruled to suspend the FDA's approval of mifepristone, a life-saving drug. Today, we hear from our wonderful speakers how this result was never an accident, how right-wing extremists will abuse their power to control us, to send us back. Well, we're not going back. Say it with me. We won't go back. We won't go back. We won't go back. We won't go back. Woo! Rachel Lyric Carmona is our executive director at Women's March. Rachel joined the organization in 2008. 4 years. Everyone, please welcome Rachel Carmona. Hello, everybody. Could I ask everybody to come up a little bit more? Can we be family in here today? Come on out, pull up a little bit. I don't want to have to scream so loud. Shout out to everybody who, like me, is suffering with allergies today. So I'm gonna beg your grace as I dab my tears away while we're talking. And I want to say thank you right off the bat. This week has been wild. At the beginning of this week, we called for an action to be here in Amarillo, which we thought we would be talking about the case that is happening. And over the course of this week, the appeal went to the Fifth Circuit, and from the Fifth Circuit bounced to the Supreme Court, who granted a temporary stay. And that's kind of where we sit right now. We're in a limbo, waiting for the decision from DC. And a lot of folks were planning to be here, shifted to DC, where we had thousands of people march on SCOTUS to make their voices heard. So shout out to everybody from DC and in the sister marches all across the country. But of course, we're here in the belly of the beast. So I think I would love to just take a second for everybody in the crowd to find a second to introduce themselves to somebody that you don't know. Because the way that we're going to win is by building community and building connections and power. So take literally just 1 second to introduce yourself to somebody that you don't know. I see some cheaters over here introducing themselves to each other and they know each other. Yeah, I don't have to be antisocial here today. So meet a new friend. So we all know
Now you have so many friends, you're like, oh, I'm gonna listen to this speech, I got friends here now. This is how movement works, this is how we connect with each other. So we're here today to protest the lawsuit that could end up banning mifepristone, which, as Allison told you, is a life-saving drug. And that would happen all across the country. It wouldn't just happen in Texas or in places where there's a ban. This would limit mifepristone from coming to the market. And that case was decided in that building right there, where Matthew Kastner, who is marginally qualified and completely compromised, has made a decision based on neither law or science and has launched this attack on our entire public health system. And no matter how you feel about mifepristone or abortion, if extremists can use the courts to ban drugs that they don't like, where will it stop? Will it stop at mifepristone? Will it go on to misoprostol, to PrEP, to COVID meds, to the HPV vaccine, as we already see them moving lawsuits to? Where does it stop? So regardless of where you are, where you live, where you come from, you are impacted by this lawsuit. And the thing that we cannot have today or any other day is politicians moving a political agenda who are cloaking themselves literally and figuratively in robes and pretending to be objective arbiters of the law. And we will not allow Matthew Kastner or anyone else to run their political agenda over our bodies or over our communities. Because judicial activists do not belong on the bench, and politicians do not belong on the bench. The case and the process by which the case came forward represents an attack on democracy, an attack on women, and an attack on America itself. Shout out to everybody who's here to fight attacks on America, attacks on democracy, and attacks on women. And let me tell you, it's not just the courts. Our country was born from protests. How many people have heard of the Tea Party? And while you all are here, let me take an aside. How many of you have heard of the Midnight Ride? Right? The English are coming, the British are coming. So how many of you know what Paul Revere did for money, for a job? Silversmith, right? So if you go to Boston, you'll see his work all around. But remember, the Midnight Ride was his volunteer work, his activist work. So you never know when you pick up a volunteer shift, when you come to an action like this, when you decide to stuff envelopes, when you decide to be that one person who steps up to when Jamie says, hey, I need help putting posters up, when it will be that one thing that makes the difference. We just really never know. So shout out to everybody who's today, here to defend democracy and defend our communities. And today, that's why we're really engaging in the fundamental act of being an American. We're exercising our free speech. It's the First Amendment, the very first one. And this right is coming, the far right versus our right, is coming to attack us in city after city, in bill after bill, in court after court. And so we have to be really careful about the way that we think about these things. This is not just an attack on women, it's not just an attack on abortion. Right here in Texas in this last week, how many of you all heard that Greg Abbott was trying to pardon a murderer who shot a protester in the chest? Right? Hands up for anybody who saw that. So we know that there are forces at work here who are trying to stop us from protesting, who are trying to stop us from exercising our First Amendment rights, who are trying to keep us from bodily autonomy, who are trying to stop us from connecting with other communities across difference, across race and place. And so what we know is we're stronger together. In this moment, we're going to survive with solidarity. And we also know that they wouldn't have to lie, cheat, and steal if they could win fair and square. The truth is, there's more of us than there are of them. There's more of what? There's more of us than there are of them. There's more of us. There's more of us. There's more of us. So activists like us have a hard road to toe. We have to continue to fight to uphold this fundamental idea and to expand it to include all of us in the country. We have to get to the biggest we that we possibly can. And we saw in the last month the attack on the WT students who were planning a drag show to benefit the Trevor Project, which is engaged in trying to keep LGBT kids from killing themselves. What could be objectionable about that? But they found objection. And the reason that they found objection is because the opposition to our communities, they have to take queer people and separate them from women, separate them from communities of color, and separate them from trans folks Because when we're separate, we're less strong, we're less together. And there's not more of us in each one of these little pockets. But when we see through that and when we come together, we're stronger and we can win, and they know that. So shout out to Amarillo, who's really been showing up and showing out in the last month. They're probably like, what is going on in Amarillo? And meanwhile, what is going on in Amarillo? The organizations like the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine and the Alliance for Defending Freedom have been here at work in the dark, in the shadows, trying to cobble together this sham case to make sure that American democracy only extends to a select few who look like them while stripping freedoms from the rest of us. And we know that they don't believe that we all have the same right to equal protection, rights, and dignity. And I think that America is one of the most concrete examples of this. How many people actually read the decision? Yes. So when you go, you look through, if you want to read, the American Bar Association agrees that he's one of the very few judges deemed to be just barely qualified. He meets the minimum expectation. And we've seen him attempt to exclude women and girls, gay and trans children, and numerous others from the promise of America over and over again. And his opinion of the Reproductive case was riddled with anti-abortion rhetoric. He is a career activist, a career politician, and his anti-abortion crusading has lasted far, for his entire adult life, far beyond his law degree. So, like, can we get a solid thumbs down? Can we get a boom? Can we get a boom? So, the fight to protect our rights and our families and our democracy and our communities doesn't happen every 4 years. It doesn't even happen every 2 years. A lot of times you see people getting ramped up for elections, but the truth is that we cannot have trickle-down power. We cannot have trickle-down organizing. It has to come from the ground up. We have to care about individuals in our communities. We have to care about individual and local races. And that will, every 2 or 4 years, happen to benefit the people that run. And we have to make sure that we're electing public servants all up and down our ballot, when we're talking about city councils, school boards, anywhere, that reflect our values. Because let's remember, they're public servants. And if you look at history in our country, you know that big change has never actually been initiated by people in Congress or the Supreme Court. It has always come from a groundswell of people just like us until they were forced to bend to the will of the people. And so that's what we're going to do again. We're going to force them to hear our voices. We're going to force them to understand that the America that we want is the America that we're going to fight for, and the America that we're going to bring into fruition, and we will not go back. We will not go back. We won't. We won't. We won't. We won't go back. We have delivered political, electoral consequences to the enemies of our communities over and again. We saw a red wave that was a red trickle. We saw 2018 that had historic outcomes. We saw 2020 where, you know who was shown the door and got evicted. And we're gonna do it again in 2024. And so it's important for all of us to be together, to get to know each other, to continue to keep our eye on the ball. And you know what, listen, we get it. We're tired too. We know that you all are tired. We know that the road is long and it's grueling and it's hard to continue to be here. Some of us, for the second time, some of our elders were here, were in the fight for abortion the first time around. And yeah, shout out. Shout out to the elders who are here and who are still here. We know that we have to do the unglamorous job of building political power. And that doesn't always look like it looks right now. Mostly it's stuffing envelopes and moving boxes and having hard conversations, talking to families, changing opinions, changing hearts and minds. This is not glamorous work. This is hard work. It's privileged work. And it's also our job. We are the relay runners of this particular leg. And we know that the fight against sexism and misogyny is millennia old. We know that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and we know that we won't go back. And so what it means is that we're here today in the community, and the most important thing that happened is we already showed up, and that's half of the battle. And so what I would implore you is that we keep showing up, that we stay defiant, never defeated, that our movement is big and strong enough to win on all of the things that matter for all of us, and that we stay with communities, with our allies, and that we don't get separated from the people whose futures depend upon ours and ours to theirs. So shout out to everybody for showing up here today. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. And usually I'm a little bit more rah-rah. I'm very sick this week. And again, my allergies have me all the way out the game. But I think that instead of faking it, I'm just gonna say that up here because we don't always show up at 100%. We don't always show up at our best. We can't always be, the most perfect version of ourselves. And so I think it's important to show up authentically in this moment. I think it's important to say, this is who we have, it's who we're working with. This is our community and this is how we're going forward. So here I am with my winking eyes, my sleeping. I'm barely holding back a cough and have been for a few minutes. And I'm here in the fight here in Amarillo. And so today we're rallying. And tomorrow we're going to organize, we're going to mobilize, we're going to continue to connect with people both in Texas and in the region. We're going to continue to build power, and we're not going to allow continued sharing cases to go through this court in the dark. And we're going to continue to shine a light, and we're going to build the kind of community and the kind of future that we all deserve here, right here in Amarillo, in the Panhandle, and in Texas. And we're going to. So shout out. We're shining a light on Tex Merrick's Kangaroo Court. Shout out to the Amarillo folks who have kept the light on here in Amarillo. Shout out to Amarillo Women's March, who has been one of the most active women's march groups since 2017. Shout out to all the rest of the amazing speakers that you're getting today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for grounding us in that moment. Can we have one more hand for Rachel? All right, next, I would love to introduce Amanda Shakur, a volunteer, neurodivergent, reproductive, and racial justice organizer, educator, and facilitator. She's been doing abortion access work for the last 8 years, first managing the All Options Hoosier Abortion Fund in Bloomington, Indiana. She currently works as the interim organizing co-director at the National Network of Abortion Funds, supporting the development of network-wide and cross-country strategies to build power for abortion access. Born and raised in Hampton Roads, Virginia, she began organizing with the community to fight against targeted restrictions on abortion providers in Virginia, alongside various reproductive health and rights organizations, working for alternatives to the death penalty and supporting the campaigns of progressive politicians running for local office. Her current organizing and political education centers racial reproductive health, economic justice through a lens of Black liberation and abolitionist values. Folks, Amanda Shakur.
And I am with the National Network of Abortion Funds. We envision a world where every reproductive decision, including abortion, takes place in thriving communities that are safe, peaceful, and affordable. We envision a world where all people have the power and resources to care for and affirm their bodies, identity, and health for themselves and their families in all areas of their lives. I have been working with and for abortion funds, like I said, for the last 8 years. And I have seen the truly devastating impact of unwarranted abortion restrictions on people and their families and their access to health care. And just like with every other abortion restriction, the harm will fall hardest on those who face economic injustices and barriers to health care, especially Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, queer people, trans people, and disabled people. We are here in solidarity with and for abortion funds, including our network of 100 plus funds. That's right, you know, more than 100 funds strong. People who have abortions, providers, and support folks are facing increasing and unprecedented criminalization and attack. This court ruling is an unconscionable political interference with basic healthcare and basic human rights, with the end goal to end medication abortion altogether. We know that the hits are going to keep on coming, but we also know that abortion funds will not allow our government and judicial systems to chip away at our basic human rights. We will rise up together. Are we going to stop fighting for access to health care in our communities? No. Are we going to stop supporting people who seek abortion care? Are we going to stop organizing to end the criminalization of abortion in all of its forms? Hell no! Hell no! Together, we are going to keep building our political power, keep disrupting, keep funding abortions, and keep shutting shit down until we get to true economy, justice, and liberation for all people. Join us in the fight at abortionfunds.org. All love, power, and solidarity to the people.
No, more like, oh, yes. All right, so earlier, Richard had mentioned the WTA movement who were organizing their own community. Next, we're introducing Kay Line, a trans masculine non-binary person and a current student at West Texas A&M University, and one of the many students who recently protested against censorship of drag presented by the university's president. He's a first-year student currently studying digital communication and media. He also serves as the secretary for Spectrum, the student-led LGBT support community at WTMU. They are an artist, activist, and general supporter of human rights both nationally and internationally. Folks, Kay Klein.
Even after the past month of doing public speaking and protesting, I'm still not used to speaking in front of other people, so please excuse me. So I first want to thank Suhail, Celine, Allison, all the other members of the Women's March who I have been in contact with over the past few weeks. Working with this organization has been a drain for me and for many other people who I've protested with. So all of you have helped us out so much, and I could not be more grateful to the Women's March. So as already stated, I'm one of the students who recently protested for free speech and expression at West Texas A&M University. Our free speech and our right to decide our plan in life are protected by the Constitution. And now lawmakers are pushing against our rights as citizens of the United States in the name of safety. And I put that in quotations. What sort of safety do they believe in? Is it truly safe for government officials to ban the way someone expresses themselves out of personal preference? Is it truly safe for lawmakers to ban a life-saving medication for millions of Americans just because they don't see the use of it or personally think it's morally wrong? Whether it's about drag or mifepristone, the policymakers of this country are not giving their people safety. What they are giving us is nothing short of a self-serving agenda that limits the freedoms of US citizens. As someone who cannot be on birth control for various health reasons, I find that mifepristone is an extremely valuable resource, even if I may never have to use it in my lifetime. Having that safety net is critical to me and to many other people just like me. I may be asexual, so I don't have to worry about getting pregnant from a partner. But what frightens me most is the possibility that if I were to become pregnant from being sexually assaulted, I would have no way out. That is a fear that too many people have. And now that fear is being turned into a reality. If this issue is really about safety to policymakers, don't you think that this would come into consideration at some point? And yet, time and time again, our needs are shunned in favor of politicians' self-righteous viewpoints.
Our safety no longer resides in the hands of the government. They have never been concerned about the citizens who depend on them. What they are concerned about is bending the law to fit their own views rather than the views of those whom they're meant to represent. I think I speak for everybody currently here when I say these politicians do not represent the citizens. Our voices are not being heard. Our democracy is being chipped away at by people whose only goal is to silence those who are not like them. Our free speech and our rights to medical freedom are under attack. And we are not going to stand by and watch as these people strip us of our security. We are going to step up and fight against these bad actors who believe that safety resides in denying the rights of other people. And we will not be safe, nor will we be silent until our rights are secured. Thank you. Next, we have Tiara Cooper. Tiara Cooper is a national community organizer and activist passionate about faith, justice, and Black liberation. Experiencing a felony conviction as a teen propelled Tiara Cooper into a lifetime mission to end mass incarceration, felony disenfranchisement, and dismantle historical systems of white supremacy. She advocates at the local, state, and federal level on policy issues impacting Black, Brown, and poor people. Tiara is co-director of In Defense of Black Lives Dallas and founder of Rooted in Liberation. Welcome, Tiara Cooper.
When I say fist up, you say fight back. Fist up, fist up, fist up. When I say fight back. Fight back. Fight back. See, we've been in a battle. On June 24th of last year, a war was declared on women. The overturning of Roe versus Wade and the Texas abortion bans and trigger laws went into effect, criminalizing women at any stages of pregnancy who wanted or needed an abortion. We recently witnessed the attempt of mifepristone, one of the safest abortion pills in the nation, who proposed to be eliminated off the shelves. Extremists around this country have denied us of our safety. We've been targeted and preyed upon as women, making us instant targets, those who already warned of the state, simply for declaring that our bodies were still our choice. So I want to thank you for choosing to be here on today in spite of all danger and precaution. That notifies to me that we still have choice, we still have autonomy, and we still have decisions to make. My name is Tiara Cooper, and I'm here on behalf of the movement for Black Lives, in defense of Black Lives Balance, and we stand in defense of bodily autonomy, reproductive rights, and access to safe healthcare, especially for Black women who are the most vulnerable people and the most impacted by these policies. Recognizing that Black women have been denied a range of services and protections since the moment our ancestors entered into the country, stripped down in chains, auctioned under their own will. See, we've never had a choice that wasn't first fought for. I'm reminded that our bodies didn't legally belong to us ever. It belonged to the state. Freedom, or shall I say legality, isn't a given. It must be fought for. It must be taken. And it is us who has kept us safe
And it is us who will keep us safe. It's thicker than road, y'all. Though the roads get weary, the rulings continue to pile up. Discrimination and abuse are becoming more prevalent in many states. We continue to fight. We will continue to fight for our human rights, for our dignity intact. See, they can try, but they cannot strip us or deprive us of our dignity. The attack on women's rights are only the beginning. The war on women is here and it never left. I'm here not only as an organizer and activist, but I am a mother of two beautiful daughters who I wish in the future they have choices. I am a sister of many. I am a receptor of an abortion. I am a freedom fighter, and I'm here as a woman who has experienced the effects of limited access to health care, the overwhelming barriers. Oh my God, the barriers of getting an abortion, having to go outside of your home, limited resources, and feeling like there was no one I could talk to without creating an environment of harm. A woman who has witnessed countless acts of violence at the hands of the state. The same state that kills, surveils, and criminalizes us on a daily simply for being Black in America. The same state with a governor that has allowed guns to overshadow the lives of children. A food deserted state that can't even seem to keep baby formula on the shelves. Yeah, that's the same state that seeks to take our right to choose. Talk about it. So I say, keep your hands off my body and keep the liquor pressed on the shelves. No extra state violence, misogyny, racism, or bullshit will silence the people. We those called to serve us, but we're taking a step back and we decided to serve ourselves in the deepest forms of love, care, and liberation by any means necessary. And where there is people, there is power. All power to the people. Our love to the people. Our hope to the people.
Liberation to the people. All freedom to the people.
All choice to the people. The fight continues.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Truly a reminder that we are the ones who agree.
Okay, everybody, and the reason why that I was flashing the rainbow flag before from Diet Coke because I'm a transgender woman who got that a couple years ago at some event a couple years ago, and later on tonight I'm gonna post on my YouTube channel and I'll email you all the link. And thank you and have a nice day. Nice afternoon, or yeah, afternoon and day.